I'm Jennifer Zwilling, Curator and Director of Artistic Programs here at the Clay Studio, and our um, Play and Conversations has now been going on. It's our fifth year, which is kind of crazy. We started in 2020. And I'm going to introduce Minah in a moment. First, we're very excited that her exhibition Parallax is on view in the gallery. So if you haven't gotten to see it yet, I hope you'll get a chance to go down there. So I'm going to start with our land recognition. We recognize that the Clay Studio stands on the indigenous territory known as Lenape, the traditional homelands of the Lenni Lenape people. We would like to take a moment to reflect on the role of the Lenape as the past, present, and future stewards of the land, and the role of all of us to join in their tradition of respect and caring for the land and each other. So I'm going to introduce Minah. Minah Kim is from South Korea, where she earned her BFA and MFA at Ewha Women's University. She then came to the US and earned an MFA at the University of Arkansas. Minah has shown her pieces internationally and nationally, including at the Asia Contemporary Art Show in China, the Clay Studio, District Clay in DC, Frankfurt Herbstmesse in Germany, many others in South Korea, including Seoul Art Center, Gimhae Clay Art Museum, Gomjae Jungsan Museum, as well as completed an artist residency at Anderson Ranch, at Gimhae Clay Art Museum. She is a recipient of numerous grants and fellowships, including the NCCA Multicultural Fellowship, Artist 360, and others. Minah is a panelist of NWSA, an AAPI Heritage Discussion Group of Northwest Arkansas, and was also a Mass MoCA resident artist in the winter of 2021, right before starting here at the Clay Studio. And seems so fast, but it's been 3 years, which means that Minah is also reaching the end of her time here at the Clay Studio. So we're celebrating with your exhibition, and we'll have to be sad when you leave, but happy for you to move on to your next adventure. So we are now going to talk about the show downstairs, starting with the question that I ask every artist, which is, how and why did you make the brave decision to make your life in art?
Hmm. So I think I repeated this memory several times, and I shared it from the beginning of my residency here. The very first moment of my memory is between me and my mother. I was young enough to sit on the table feeding myself with the spoon. I don't know how well I did it, but somehow I could do it independently. So my mom had enough time to sit in front of the TV on the living room area on the floor, kind of crunching, hugging her knees, kind of looking up to the television. And all of a sudden I realized that, oh, she's different person. So she's not only mom of myself, but also she has her own story. And it felt like I don't know her so much. So that was my first experience and one of the powerful experiences that I felt about the other. And I started to imagine about other people's life, other people's emotion, and until now and then. And I think that's what literature or artistic experience to me, and function to me as an artist. So I never really thought that I will be an artist, or I never made like decisive moment that I will become an artist or I am meant to be an artist. But I think slowly what I was drawn to in terms of researching history or looking up other people's story and wanting to express something that is it's so difficult for me to explain through language or in a verbal way. So I started drawing. I started to use my other senses other than spoken or written language. And I think that's how I naturally got here.
That's a really powerful memory. That memory of remembering when you're separate. That's pretty amazing. I don't know that I have ever verbalized that.
So, when you had those experiences, though, you said like you never. A lot of people say that like it was never a choice, but it is. I think it's very brave to share these deep emotions with people, with strangers, with people you know. So, I guess can you talk a little bit about a time when you like realized
That it was going to take a lot of emotional energy to make art and share it with the world. And when you went from sort of like drawing as an expression and as a way to maybe relax or play to that moment when you thought like this is a serious way that I'm gonna make my life.
Yeah, I there was a moment that I kept investing my time exploring techniques and art, history, discipline myself more in terms of technically throughout painting, drawing. I started with painting and then changed my major into ceramics. I always loved drawing human bodies, and my sister and I used to play like making up stories, like, oh, this is a pop star, and we drew really beautiful women like dressing up, change hair. So that's how we played. While my parents were they were both working when I was growing up. So me and my sister was just story building, world building, and that was my youth, and then a lot of disciplining through art high school, art universities. But then I started to hit the limitation because until then it was more of about self-expression. Basically, I like this color, so I'm going to use this color because it feels right to me. And I always felt kind of frustrated that I want to know why I'm drawn to these subjects. If I keep drawing human bodies, if I keep use this color, if I'm eager to use of more of monochrome color rather than colorful choices, then why is that? So I started to explore more about the thoughts of the others. I think that's me exploring the thresholds, the boundaries between myself and the outer society. So since then, I think I started to look around more of my own environment. I was living and raised in the city. So I could see a lot of cityscapes, other people doing working in the other environment, the building, the history of buildings, the nature. So that's when I started slowly thinking more about like bringing sources about others to my work, and that was the expansion and kind of explosion about my own way to explore as an artist. So I think that was the first moment that I finally feel like I'm doing the work that artists usually do, which is researching.
Hmm. Well, and researching then became such an important part of the show
Yeah.
downstairs, but I don't want to skip ahead too fast. Um, so do you want to talk about how clay became the best vehicle for your explorations and your research?
Sure. So the first moment that I encountered clay was my junior year of my university. Um, when I was started making pots, because the assignments was usually pot wheel throwing and hand building. And hand building assignment was it's really up to you type of homework. And I started making small box that I can contain some precious object in it, and everything was kind of bulky. I didn't really know what I was doing. But the moment that when I unloaded my piece from the kiln, I could feel the warmth of it. And I think the process of burning, the process of the transformation of the the material was it was surprising me in a way that it's a very tangible process from the beginning to the end. And I know that clay is a lot older than me and it'll stay much longer than myself. So that was kind of spiritual moment that I felt so connected to the material that I never felt before. And I was feeling very curious about that connection between my physical body and the material. So that's how the rabbit hole all started.
Wow, another like really powerful thing, the idea that you realized it was older than you and that it, it's the earth, right? So all of this is older. Does anyone nod? Do you all feel that way? Do you feel like you're touching something that's ancient when your room is filled with ceramic artists? So I think that that's a common feeling. But again, I haven't really heard it expressed like that, so that's really beautiful. Um, do you, it also sort of makes me laugh when you say that you felt it warm out of the kiln because we often joke about people bringing us things to the gallery when they're still warm. So, but that's great. And it goes through this transformation. It changes. It's magical and scientific and ancient all at the same time.
Yeah, it almost felt like it survived something, the heat and all the art process, because it was quite challenging for me to let it dry properly. So because I was really into fast drawing, croquis and drawings and fast painting was that I really intuitively enjoyed doing. But the process of working with clay was so demanding, also very enduring. The just dealing with the material took a lot of patience from me. But also the medium itself had to undergo such a extreme condition to become an outcome of something or like become something that can preserve itself.
Which is such a metaphor again for your show downstairs and all the things you've been thinking about. And then you decided to come to the US. You want to talk a little bit about why and that another brave decision that you made?
Yeah, so I met my mentor who has been such an important influence to myself. Her name is Minah Kim, my professor that I met in my last senior year of my undergrad. She taught me about literary. So she was the first person who talked about contemporary art critiques, art reviews, or art theories, philosophy based on feminism theories. So that was kind of something that I was waiting to learn and study more because I'm still inside of my own world. And that was very helpful for me to be connected with the outer world, outer thinking. So that was kind of breakthrough moment. And she always persuaded me to go outside of Korea to meet different culture. So it wasn't only going to school, but it was to make a chance for me to live in a different culture, talk to different people from different backdrops, and become an independent artist because I'm not only Korean, but also I'm just global citizen, just particle of the entire globe. So that's always what she emphasized. So I think I made a really good decision, and yeah, thanks to her.
Oh, that's wonderful. And I hope she's maybe not watching, but looking at your exhibition online, and that's great. So then you were here, you were in Arkansas. Can you talk a little bit about what it was like to sort of transition into that new culture and then how you ended up coming here to the play studio?
So to me, Arkansas was very culturally different, but also equally interesting, just like any other cities. So I think it was very challenging environment for me in a way that a lot of people in that there wasn't familiar to my culture as well. And also, so there was some moments that I had to question myself about my national identities, my racial identities. So were the questions that I never had to encounter and try to struggle with when I was in Korea. And you know, Arkansas was not like New York City or LA where a lot of diversity is ongoing. So they had their own strong culture that and that was actually a great chance to start doing the research about the land and the history of America, about Native American because it was also possessed by that heavy loaded culture.
Yeah.
So that was the very first time I started to do the research about the land outside from my own curiosity and from my own needs to understand more about why is it like this right now and where this is coming from. Just like how Korean society is right now, and just understand why it is coming from, where it is coming from. Um, so, and there was a lot of social political tension when I was in my grad program, which was BLM and a lot of like COVID and Asian hatred. So I could experience that how my racial and cultural identity is it becomes highly politicized, and I definitely felt like myself is functioning to others as a representation of not myself but others.
Right.
So
Nice.
confusing, anxious experience that I never had back in Korea.
Yeah, not only going into a new culture, but going into a new culture that is not very metropolitan, let's say, and having it be at that moment where there was so much racism against Asian people in our country and just COVID in general, it's been really difficult. Um, I assume that you put a lot of that into your work.
So my thesis work was about kind of expressing my individual emotions and what I felt, what I experienced during that time, and that was not only in Arkansas. It wasn't something about Arkansas, but it was more about myself being in a very dislocated position, but still having desire to build connection, to build community. But it wasn't always necessary thing that because I'm Korean, living in the middle part of the country, building the community. That doesn't mean that I want to be part of Korean Arkansas community. I just genuinely wanted to make a humanely connection, and it didn't really matter who you are, who other people are coming from. So I built a peace audience and to make kind of indirect physical connection by using my thumbprints and cover the floor of some auditorium hallway. So audience can come into the space and kind of walk on my physical marks. So that was kind of my metaphor of we are touching each other and we're making sound with each other. So that was kind of my direct form of expressing the desire to be connected.
And then those thumbprints are such a great visual illustration of the desire for your something on your body to then be translated so somebody else can see it. And you've talked also about how those individual, it's like many people forming one community when you make all your individual thumbprints and then you form them, either you put them on the floor or you form them into the basket forms. So were the thumbprints for that installation, was that the first time you did that process? And then it's interesting to me that you continued that practice, but you evolved it into like very different work. So was that something that happened after grad school when you went to Mass MoCA, or can I talk a little bit about that transformation?
So the thumbprints was back then it was I thought it was my not as a mark making but my way of writing about the body. So the opposable thumb is the very human act that only a human can do. So we're basically the species of animal, but doing pinching is the very unique act of human that only human can do, like pinching. So that was the base level where I started doing. I want it to be very basic. I want even child do the pinching. So I wanted to go back all the way back to the very clean desire of pinching. And now I'm using it as a visual friction that creates some ambiguity that it can remind people depending on what they're thinking. But it's the tool for the ambiguity or some ambivalence of the texture. So I like to use it as some open conversation so that it does show some presence of the material because it's kind of slows down the viewer's interaction with the piece as well.
And just that you can see it in all these different versions. And as we're talking, I'm changing some slides so you can see that. And we'll talk about all the different places where the thumbprints are shown in the gallery in a moment. But I'd love for you to talk now a little bit about your experience at the Clay Studio and what the residency has meant to you.
So this is my third residency, and my first one was in Mass MoCA. The second one is at Prada Rome, which is international residencies outside of Korean ones. So I found it very, very interesting because Clay Studio has such unique style with engaging the public communities and art educations. So it was such a huge learning curve as an artist who wants to build such a big thing or just keep imagining nonstop, having desire to show more, build more, want to create big, and but at the same time, I could see what's my role as an artist. So that was the question that I kept asking myself: what am I doing in this building? How I interact with other people. So that was such a learning curve, and my experience was so wonderful because of people in this building and also the facilities. Um, yeah, so I feel very grateful for those who work in this building have such a um, precious feeling towards art and process of building and also process of working together. So I really appreciate that experience.
Well, that's great. Like I said, we feel honored to help you make your artistic vision come to life. It's especially great when we have all people from all over the building. Bradford helped, lots of other people helped, and carrying things and moving. So another thing that maybe you'll talk about, but I just want to say about that process is that through your screen of the 3D printed tiles, you said to me, and I felt it myself, that with many people helping, you had a chance to spend time with people and talk as you were tying and gluing, and that's like a microcosm of the best version of what art can do. Bring people literally together to share their ideas and their feelings. So that was really great. So you, was it 2 years ago that you wrote the grant for the Independence Foundation?
Yes.
And then we're able to go on a research trip. So why don't we hear about your research trip and how that led to this
Yeah.
exhibition?
Yeah. So my exhibition Parallax was funded and supported by Independence Foundation, and that funding was also it was also nominated by the Clay Studio. So I feel grateful that I got the opportunity to actually be there, be at the place, and meet the real people that I always wanted to talk and to like spend time with. So as I said, it was very critical moment for me to meet the outer society, not just stuck in my own world. And I often thought I'm so interested in learning about history, but do I have right to talk about these people? And since I was very interested in the collective and political violence that group of people had to undergo, I had to meet directly those people, and I just needed to talk to them before I even start my work. So I wrote the grant writing about the how people are kind of recovering or what's the subsequence of the collective atrocities after certain political events happened, and um, and I got to connect with two important people that I got so much help from. So one is Mr. Park that I met in Gwangju, South Korea. He is the executive director of the May 18 Foundation, which is directly related to May 18 Korea democratization movement. So that happened in 1980, and thousands of people were sacrificed because of the military dictatorship. And that was the town where my parents lived when they're in their 20s. And Dr. Tomasz Delansky, who is the director of International Center of Education, Krakow University of Technology in Poland, he is the expertise of sustainable urbanism and rebuilding, reconstructing destroyed cities from the collective atrocities such as war. So these two people were the kind of the connector, the main hub for me to explore cities and the history of cities. So, with the support of Independence Foundation and these two main expertise, I could travel and get to meet the society, the community more in depth.
So first you went to Poland. Yeah.
I went to Gwangju in South Korea to participate in the memorial event because it happened in May. So I went to there first and then went to Poland because they were also commemorating their 81st anniversary of the uprising in Warsaw
And did you
in
have
August.
so both you had chances to speak directly to people who had, well, in Gwangju, maybe people who had experienced it, maybe not in Poland. It's a long time ago. But do you want to talk about those individual conversations that you had?
So in Gwangju, because it happened in 1980, there were still people who survived from the massacre. And compared to that, because it was a little bit longer, like more past in the history, I could meet the the next generations. And Thomas was also the grandson of the survivor um, from the concentration camp. Um, so I didn't include the stories or the photos or images of them in my presentation, but that was the most important resource. Their verbal testimonies and the archives that I physically saw and touched was the most important part of it. And actually, I brought some stones and rocks that I collected from those important sites, so that you can kind of touch and just feel. It can be random rocks if it was just on the ground, but I carry this with some meaning and some memories, so I'm here to share if you want to feel and touch the material from that site.
And of course, your parents were part of the demonstration in 1980. And I think when you and I have talked about this before, you expressed that they didn't talk about it very much. And you really didn't learn about it until you, as an adult, were doing research. So did you feel that this opportunity also gave you a chance to talk more with them about their experience?
Mhm. So that was I first started doing the long phone call when I moved to Arkansas because I felt so alone and I was looking for deep connection. And I started to call my mother. We were just on the call all day long. My mom couldn't really work, but 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 I was late 20s when I arrived in Arkansas. So I asked, "What were you doing in my age?" And she told me I was in Gwangju. So that was how it got started. And she told me about what she witnessed, what she heard over the window, and also my father, about the stories about my father. So, but in the beginning, my mom didn't want me to engage with this history because it's too painful to for her to even talk about this, and she also had some kind of guilty feeling that a lot of people experienced who left that city with so many different reasons for their jobs and everything, but they were still suffering from the guilt, like we left them. Um, so, but in the end, I mean, now it's almost 5 years from that time, and my parents are very supportive about my research, and I think they believe in power and the kind of importance about me digging into the history and do the research.
So they it can be cathartic to be able to talk about it and that they're proud of you for thinking about it. Maybe they can be proud of their role that they had. I would love for you to then talk about how all those things, your research, talking to your parents, the feeling of connection that you're looking for, how does that all now get expressed through this beautiful exhibition?
So even outside of the research, the other biggest inspiration is just the world surrounding me, the contemporary culture and the politics and just the environment itself, the material is the biggest inspiration for me because I'm just part of it. So I always wonder what I am participating um, and what I want to resist, even though I cannot fully resist from it. So it's my um, direct form of expression of my emotion and my experience as a indirect person who never experienced those um, historical trauma or atrocity or direct killing or massacre. Um, but also because it's also happening over the time until now, I feel close, even though I have the distance from it. physical distance or time distance, um, like a jet lag situation. It's always such a struggle to follow the speed of such abundant information about the societal violence. So it's my concern about how fast I get to consume other people's suffering, because I got to hear what was the consequence after the collective atrocities. I met people, I saw their lives, and just knowing that it's happening right now and me feeling such distance is concerning me, because it feels like I'm almost losing the sense of sorrow, or not being able to feel sadness enough. Um, but also at the same time, once I start spend more time just looking into the image that is so ambiguous in the beginning of people suffering, I just keep looking into it, and once I trace their body or their postures as gesture of the body of themselves, then I slowly get to feel more connected, more near, because I also do have my own body. I know how it feels when somebody is kind of bending over to coffin or leaning onto something. The body gesture shows a lot more than what it's labeled, what it's named. They are. So that's um, that's something that I was strongly feeling when I was building this piece.
Hmm. It's you know it in your body, and so you're translating it into something that you can then share with other people so they experience it. And I've seen it, I'm sure you've seen it when you walk into the gallery. People do have that kind of visceral response because they remember a time when they had that same body gesture. Um, I could ask you lots of questions about the exhibition, but I also would like to give you the opportunity to talk about it the way you want to. So what other aspects of it do you want to make sure people understand?
I think I would like to talk a little bit about how I title the name of pieces and what materials and the process uh, of building this. So in the literature, I love reading books. I love reading because it starts with I. If there is someone carries the story. In the stories, they build friendship. They go through some challenges and overcome those challenges. And until the end of story, you never know how the story ends. And I think that's the power of the literature, that you have to experience the story, just be immersive throughout the story until the end. And after reading the book, you cannot go back to the past that you didn't read that book. So you somehow change. So it doesn't, it's not always dramatic change, but you somehow change after read a book. So for me, art is very similar to that experience. And so I think that's why I want to be more immersive and into an installation form that you can actually experience it in the space, because that's how I felt. So the standing child is titled as I. I you always know that I can be the organ I. That's just thing. But in Korean, I is also a child. Um, and I think those three meanings together was kind of powerful connection to me. It's not necessarily will easily read by audience, but that's why I put the standing child in front of the screen, just like how I experience those other sufferings from the distance, and how I see it kind of concealed, how and how it's kind of filtered. So I'm not directly into the same space or same time, but it's a kind of indirect experience. Um, And this plastic screen and the acrylic rendered cut acrylic pieces on the wooden box is the contemporary medium that's mass produced, kind of void, empty. It's not organic. So that's what I translate from the contemporary media that are so consumable, so repetitively produced, like the self-reproduction. So that's showing my paradox of experiencing this world kind of combination of organic, but also impossibility of living in such an organic life.
Mm.
And the lastly, charred wood is it has burnt surface, and historically it kind of preserves and protects the wood inside. And by burning the skin, it can live longer. So I wanted to capture that meaning into that medium.
Mm. So that's what you experience when you walk, when you approach the gallery. And then, it's quite an interesting choice to make it so people can't just walk in. The idea from the beginning when you and I talked was that you have to go around and enter from behind. So that's, to me, another metaphor maybe for how you're approaching, um, it's you're separating yourself from other people's stories, but you're also, I mean, to me, maybe this is wrong, but the fact that your parents didn't talk to you about this and that it was something that was kind of obscured from you for a long time, is that part of the idea that you're looking through this screen of like you can't quite see clearly?
Yeah, it's the limitation that I cannot fully be there. It's impossibility.
And you have to go on a journey to go back around and to come inside. Yeah.
And so just like the standing child piece, every piece has the ambiguity of the title, kind of like a double meaning. So the piece of this one, it's called You're Gone and I'm Not Alone. So You're Gone is from the parent perspective of expressing the loss of the child. And I'm Not Alone is something because I've never been a parent. I never had a kid. And so I could only think from the child's perspective. And that was something that I probably would like to say to my parents if they lost me. And I would love to say that I'm not alone to them. So they to consolidate. I mean, console them.
Mhm. Yeah, so the idea that the child who's gone is still like reaching back and trying to say that they're part of something bigger, they're not alone. Yep. And each of these has your fingerprint. So that thing that you discovered when you were looking for connection is still an important part of each one of these pieces. And you approach and you see the casket and this very recognizable um, body form of grief.
And this piece is called My First Death, and it was part of the testimonies from the survivor's family who lost their child or son. So what they were saying repetitively, I heard it from the numerous survivors saying that since they lost their child or children, it became the beginning of their funeral. Their life became a funeral. So that hit me hard, and I can never really forget about what they just said. So I titled it as My First Death, both for who died and both who is in sorrow after their death. And this piece is called Writer. And I want to say those figures in the space is actually the real people who's living right now. And this was the image of child in a war zone playing in the dirt. surrounded by the rubbles of these deconstructed, destroyed buildings around. And I would say this piece will be the most ambiguous piece in the whole space. And I want it to be more open to interpretation, and I want it to be function as a writer. I want that child who I took image from become a generator or a creator. So, and I think that's what they were doing on the ground, because they're child, they play because that's what they do. So I just reproduced in a clay form and bring it to the space.
Yeah, and children will play with anything, rocks and dirt and whatever they had. And that play, like your play as a child, is art and is the beginning of self-expression. And so you're wishing for them to keep doing that. Yeah, that's beautiful.
I would love for people in the audience to ask any questions. Either on Zoom or in real life here. You guys are in real life too, Zoom people. And then for us to just think about this, and for anyone who hasn't seen it to go downstairs and see the exhibition. Does anyone have questions? Nikki? Nikki's asking about the title Parallax.
The parallax is depending on where you're standing. You have different perspective to see when you're seeing the same thing. Depending on where you're standing, you will perceive different things. And in science, it's used to measure the distance from stars. So depending on where you are seeing the stars, you'll see different lights. So that's kind of widely used in astronomy, but more in the philosophy or in theory, they're saying the parallaxical view, which means the difference, the time difference or the perceptual difference between those two sides, the meanings or questions arises.
But you intend to give it a hopeful aura, let's say, compared to the other things, or why
The writer is more about open ending. It's still there. It has possibilities. I'm not necessarily expressing hope through that, but I'm just talking about child and how child is, and they are young, something clean, but also, I was using black because it's also clean emotion. So to me, it makes sense in terms of making the piece in a deep sorrow. It has to be in black. And when I'm making a child that's so young, so fresh, it has to be something like a very young leaf, inspired by the nature. And that decision was from my experience when I went to Gwangju. I was collecting leaves because I was doing these ceramic activities with the mothers who lost their children. We were supposed to make some moon jar, like small jar, and our title theme was My Memory Garden. So they were drawing faces of themselves or their families on the jar, and I was instructing, let's draw some leaves or nature around it to just commemorate. So I was outside, it was May, so everything was kind of springy. And I wanted to collect green leaves so that people can see and draw. And I found that the green leaves doesn't fall because it's young. So it's not supposed to be fall on the ground. So I couldn't find any green leaves, which is what is supposed to, right? And so that kind of was kind of shocking to me that if you want green leaves, you have to really pull it hard from the branch. So I realized it's such a force. If a young thing die, that's like a huge force. Or like even though it's not young, if you are just taking something living to the death, that's such a force. So that was, yeah. So yeah, that's why I made it in a kind of green, rosy color.
Yeah, that's a good. That the green ones are not supposed to fall up. They're not. They're still alive. Did you have a?
Yeah, so in the exhibition, I noticed that you have a screen that obscures view. Also, the faces are often obscured. They're looking down. There's lots of texture that obscures the body. I'm curious if you could talk a little more about the role the unseen plays in the installation. Sort of what's not there. What are you what's hidden?
Their faces. Well, tell them.
Uh, I think they are sort of visible. You mean why those gel pinches are hiding like part of this?
Yeah, I think in a more, what I'm curious about is what, on a deeper level, the idea that all the information is not there. There's some level of obscurity into the work that is otherwise uh, really deeply manifested.
I want to clarify that the direction that I want to go should be very apolitical. I want to keep it apolitical as much as I can because once my work becomes such a manifest of certain culture or certain community, I think that can be that can lose the ambiguity, which also hinders deeper connection among people because it's very captivating when you start seeing such a straightforward like signs or language from the piece. It immediately stands for something else rather than the sorrow or the very humane feeling that I experienced and that I struggled so much to connect to that level outside of all the labels and categories.
So being more specific means that you'll lose some people. Some people will just see a label or see a specific cultural reference, and then they won't be able to connect with the universal human.
Yeah, I think that what you mentioned as the specificity is something that I wanted to kind of clarify. So yeah, thank you for that question.
Does anyone else have a question? Sujin?
I saw, but I actually want to ask video today. The piece, you're gone. I was like curious why it's like the tools of pieces. And I was like curious, like, is that the mix of the burn, is that related? I was just kind of curious.
So thank you for asking that. The reason why it's not from standing is because I wanted to start from the belly. It's also ambiguous. It's not maybe not to directly explain to the viewers, but the intention was starting from the belly where that child is coming from. So and it wasn't necessary for me to build the whole body. Also because when I first encountered the image that woman holding her dad's child, I saw her body only from kind of lower belly
And so I started building from the lower belly, but then um, maybe that was the time that when I was building the belly part. I felt so sorry. Like immediately, I felt emotionally related to that because that's where the baby's coming from, and I think that was kind of strong reason why I started from there, not from the leg.
Maybe you said that you started to think about your role as an artist. Have you come to a conclusion? What is your role as an artist?
Mm, That's a great question that I always have not conclude. Maybe because I don't want to conclude. Um, but I see myself as particle of the whole society. So I'm an artist, but I'm also a human. I'm also part of the community. And my role that I want to continue is research. To me, research means building empathy, research about other story, because also that's rooted from my desire to be connected and be socialized and play a role with what I have as an artist, like visually expressing or writing, but maybe not in a direct form. So I find that that's my role to play, especially for now. Well, we are at the end of our hour. It always goes too fast. I think we could talk for another hour probably. Is there anything else that you want to share? Well, I just want to say thank you so much that you are here to listen to me and my research. And those who came to me to share your experience while you are seeing my pieces downstairs, because that's what it really completes my piece. And I'm always eager to hear what kind of experience you are having in that space with my work. So please come by, talk to me if you want to. And I will have, during the opening reception in August 14th, I'm going to change my studio to open studio, where I'm going to share some videos and research notes and writings and drawings and some photos of what I've researched in Seoul, South Korea and Poland.
Thank you, Minah.
Yeah, thank you.
Can I ask one quick question?
Oh, sorry.
Can
Yes,
I?
Jamie?
I just wonder, Mina, where you're going, what your plans are now that once you leave the clay studio.
I'm moving to Boise, Idaho. My husband started working there, so we're setting up the garage studio.
Fantastic.
We're gonna miss you in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
I'll come by.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
So
Bye.
much.
Thanks.